this microphone on. And I'm going to move this microphone off. I'm going to do that because we just have a little sound issue. So we're going to go back and we might introduce each other again. So hold on. Not a problem. Stop that. Come back over here. Give me 1 second. I just want to see if we can hear each other. Back over here. Give me one. All right. Now it looks like we are good to go. Let's take two. Okay. Introduce yourself.
Good morning again. Hey, listen, if that sound was driving you crazy, thanks for persisting through. And Kim, again, thanks for everything that you've done to support. Kim and Jen and the entire team have been amazing on this journey for me of the tech part. So I appreciate it. Welcome to 11 o'clock session, Go with the FDK Flow. I'm Jillian Stambolich, and I've got my trusted advisor, Kim Polishuk, here beside me. Kim, come say hi.
Hi again, everybody. I'm glad to be here.
Kim is being a moral and a tech support this morning, and I'm really appreciative of everything that everyone has done. So with that having said, I'm going to jump right into our presentation this morning. And don't forget that we need your voice too. This takes a community to raise a child, and when we're talking about education, the more the merrier. So here I go, trying to get the tech started. Thanks again for hanging out with us today. And this is who we are and where we are. EdTech Camp on Air. It's 11 o'clock on Sunday morning, whether you're joining us now or live or you've joined us later. Full access to the slide deck and to the resources will be on the final page of the slide deck. And I invite you again to not only collaborate and communicate back to us, but certainly spread the word and dig into your own professional learning about how we can use tech to cultivate deep learning for students. So this is me. I'm a busy mom of three, working, learning, and enjoying a lot of new adventures in my own life, both professionally and personally. And here's how you can connect. On Twitter at Jill Stam. That's my professional learning stream. It's my oldest account. It's got lots and lots of stuff, and I love to scroll back through and see how my own learning journey has progressed. What I valued before and what I value now, it shifts all the time, and I think that can be said about all learning. It's what we know now can change to something even better for tomorrow. At Mrs. Stambolich is my classroom / school account, and that is where I can connect with the community, with parents and other teachers in the school as well. And then by email, jillian.stambolich@yrdsb.ca. All right. Good morning again. Welcome to EdTech Camp on Air. It's 11 a.m. on this glorious morning, and I'm so thrilled and honored you've chosen to use your time with us. Whether you're watching live or later, please don't be a stranger when it comes to sharing your thinking. In this session, I'll be sharing our full-day kindergarten team's journey of collaboration and communication using Google Apps. Our goal is to cultivate deeper student learning. So how can the tools support documentation, planning, and assessment? This is a work in progress, and my hope is that you will share your ideas today too, because it's all hands on deck to help solve this problem. I'm joined today by some friends of FDK. Good morning, Kim. And we invite you to engage with us by using EdTech Camp on Air, hashtag on Twitter, or by sending comments or questions through the YouTube live chat. If you're watching this video on EdTech Camp on Air on Twitter, on the website, and you want to access the YouTube live chat, please click on the word YouTube at the bottom of the video, and you'll be taken to the YouTube live page where you'll find the chat. All right, let's get started. Here's our school. See the lake to the south? That's Lake Wilcox. It's a kettle lake in the Oak Ridges Moraine. Driving down North Lake Road to interview at the school 2 years ago, I knew immediately this was a place I wanted to be. Both physically and culturally, the lake community is an interesting mix of established and new. And that can describe the school, the houses, the staff, the families, the physical landscape of the community. The list goes on and on. And the FDK program in Ontario is new too. And it's been the spark to rethink why and how we do what we do as educators. I tell you this because our journey of collaboration and communication to cultivate deep learning has become incredible professional learning as well. Okay, I'll admit I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek's books, particularly Start With Why. And he also has a great TED Talk if you're into watching those. And this kind of thinking frames the purpose of the professional learning and the work that goes to support it. Why? Why are we working to collaborate and communicate as an FDK team? Couldn't the work of cultivating deep student learning be done by individual and isolated teachers? My current thinking is no. The educators must collaborate and communicate in ways that will make our assessment visible for each other. Because the primary purpose of assessment is to improve student learning. So that's a little bit about where I've started, but what's your process? No matter where you are, there is one certainty about teaching and learning. Nothing is for certain. A shout out to Mr. Egan, my high school history teacher, who drilled into every historical study. The only constant is change. And in FDK learning spaces, the indoor, the outdoor, the learning commons, the gym, the hallway, the playgrounds, our before and after school programs, our families' homes, you name it, learning opportunities abound. As FDK teachers, we have to be flexible, creative, and the tie that binds all of these educators and experiences together. How's this possible when we can't be everywhere with the students throughout their day? Google Apps to the rescue. Remember this show? Multiple adults and families joining together. Sound familiar? Well, at the lake, the FDK teams have an experience like the family blending that Carol, Mike, Alice, and the kids did. Is this like your school? Classroom teachers, DECEs, librarians, HBE teacher, ELL team, EAs, special ed, all of these adults support the FDK students through the day. The mix will be specific to your school context, but I know that wherever the mix, there's a lot going on to support our earliest learners. And in all this planning, noticing, wondering, and assessing, all these words that frame our thinking about the students every day, it isn't easy and there are no shortcuts. And the educator's learning is a key component to the success of the program. We need to work efficiently and collaboratively in FDK teams. So take a moment to think about who is on your team. When it came to your mind, did you include the DECEs, the prep teachers, the EAs, the families, the lunch assistants? Now, of that group, who's able to contribute to the documentation and assessment and the planning of student learning? What tools does that team need? What support does that team need? Who can help your team achieve success? Before we go further, I wanted to share the mental model of how I understand the definitions aligning with the relationships between the student and teacher and the student and curriculum. In the middle lies the learning, the instructional core. The task that is designed for the student is constructed based on the relationship the student has with the curriculum and with the teacher. Documentation of the student learning is the task. Responsively coming in and out of the learning at the right time with the next teacher move, this requires a process and a system to capture this learning. So I'm pulled back to the why. I'm sharing this graphic with thanks to Will Richardson. In a recent Modern Learners webinar I was part of, he asked, would you rather that your children were literate, numerate, or curious? All right, there's no right or wrong answer here, but it does beg the question, what's your stance? As a modern learning and teaching team at Lake Wilcox, we have discussions about the language you see in these 4 colored boxes. In the green box, for example, the stance we take as an adult educator will influence what we say and what we do with learners. How does this come alive in our planning, teaching, and assessment? In the past, to create places to document student learning, we've tried Picolage, we've tried paper tracking sheets. There were file folders and filing cabinets, check boxes, and lots of pencil, paper, and clipboards around the classroom. But we're both a Google Apps school and a Google Apps board in York Region. Also, part of our professional learning at the school level is around engagement. So this was a bridge for us to rethink the communication within the relationships between student and teacher and student curriculum. So let's talk about how this process began, what we did to set up the technology pieces, and how this supports our thinking and our professional assessment and documentation in the full day kindergarten class. So the first thing you do is open your Google Drive, and you're going to need to click on the blue New button. You're going to be creating a new folder. From the drop-down menu, you're going to select Folder, and it's going to ask you to name the folder. I put a number 1 in front of the name I gave it, so it's always the first folder in the pile when I open my drive. Oops, I bumped the slide up a little bit too fast. Sorry about that. So I'm just going to go back 1 slide. So you'll see at the orange arrow that the folder is 1, FDK room 133 students. That is the folder where all the documentation assessment is going to be held. That number 1 helps bump it to the top of the pile every time. Okay, next we're going to talk about what happens in that folder. So again, when we're communicating and collaborating to cultivate deep student learning, we have to have a system and an organizational tool. So here comes the way that we can organize individual places for student documentation of their learning. So again, we're going to the blue button at the top left. The folder you just created is empty, and so we're going to fill it with a doc. And each doc is going to be for each individual student. This does take a bit of time, but you're set up for the whole year once you create this. So go to the drop-down list and select Google Doc, and you're going to be given 2 choices. Choose blank document, and it opens a new screen. You're going to change the untitled document to the student's first name. If you have 2 students with the same name, I put the last initial at the end of the first name. So Aaron Trainer will look like Errant. But you need to do this. You need to differentiate for each student for another step that comes up later in the process. All right, we've created a folder. Now we've created a doc for each student. So the reason that we're doing this is that this communication and capture of student learning is intended to be collaborative with all the educators who are entering the flow of the day of the student. So once we have the folder set and we've added a doc for each student, think of the folder as a big filing cabinet. It's a space ready to hold anything you want to put in. So you can start to imagine what pieces you want to capture student thinking with. So we use the doc for each student to capture pictures and anecdotal notes. Because the folder has been shared with all the other educators on the FDK team, any one of them can open the FDK folder, find the student's doc, insert pictures or anecdotal notes. And as the year progresses, it's amazing how students will now ask to share their work and learning into their document. They ask us for the iPad, they open their doc, and they put in their work. Sitting and talking with them later, we can make detailed notes. We can ask them questions. We can dig deeper into their thinking and their understanding and deepen the relationship between the student and the teacher and deepen the understanding the teacher has about the student's connection to the curriculum. As educators, we can use this evidence in the pedagogical documentation process we can do as a team. All right, so there's another step that we had to think about. In the new FDK program, all of the overall expectations are divided into 4 frames. These 4 frames drive our thinking and understanding and support our teaching to help students go deeper in their learning. Having those overall expectations to think about, to teach to, and to assess, we had to find a way to incorporate this within the process of assessment and documentation as well. So here's where Google again came to the rescue to connect and communicate the evidence. So connecting to the curriculum and collaboration for planning and assessment has become a really big learning. And as the students flow through the day, many adults are in and out of the learning space. So when students travel to the library, outdoors, to the gym, the collaborating and communicating about student learning has become a big question for a team. So one solution was to create these 4 forms that align with the FDK program's overall expectations in the 4 frames. Creating 4 forms, one for each frame, allows multiple educators the opportunity to demonstrate how they see the student and the curriculum interacting. It's always best to have a fresh pair of eyes. And if you had a chance to listen to Chris Clough's Night talk this morning, one of the big pieces I walked away from listening was about being a guest, how much a guest sees and the fresh eyes and the fresh perspective that they can bring. Again, it's a team effort to help support the cultivation of deep student learning. So here's a snapshot of one of the forms. So this form is for the frame self-regulation and well-being. We keep this process pretty simple. It's a busy classroom and it's a busy day, so our process needs to be streamlined and efficient. We created very few steps to complete in the form, and each of the 4 frames are identical except that the overall expectations change. So it's familiar, it's simple, and it's fast to use. You can use it on a computer. Teachers are now walking around with iPads to document. That way, this is accessible by all members of the FDK team as long as all of these pieces are shared. When you're creating your form, please don't forget, modify it any way that works for you. However, to attach these forms to the student's doc in a later step, choose checkboxes. So as you're developing your form, you're adding in the student name, do it in checkboxes to load in. This will help when we doc append this form later. Again, yes, there's a bit of setup time, but it's totally worth the investment. So once you have your form set up, you and anyone you've shared access with to the form are ready to enter observational data about a student. But it's this next step that you'll want to do first before going live with your form that makes this whole process magical. Remember when we created a file for the class and a doc for each student? Well, in order to gather and hold all that student data into the student's doc for each individual student, you'll need this next friend, DocAppender. This is a tool that takes some learning to use. I learned it from a friend who learned it from a friend who. You get the idea. It's Sunday morning, but this really is a great thing to
That was
together.
awesome.
Thank you, my Sunday morning singing. You'll really want to get to know somebody who can even walk you through. There are videos. Lean on your tech lead in your school, or even better, on the final slide of the slide deck, I've included a resource list of how-to videos and some instruction sheets, and there you'll find a DocAppender how-to video. You could be like me and just fail and try and fail, and then finally you get it. That works sometimes too. But you really want to use this tool and learn to use this tool. So when your form is completed by another educator, DocAppender doesn't care. It's going to find the student's doc and it's going to add any information into that student's file based on the form that's filled out. So it's really brilliant to have all this data in one place. And as a bonus step, all the data from the form is populated into a Google Sheet. And this has been a critical step for me when I am reporting the communication of learning later on in the process. Okay, so I'm always coming back to the why. Throughout the flow of the day with the students moving in and out of their learning with so many different people, I'm pulled back to the slide from Will Richardson. And even though we've been just talking quite a bit about the how and the what of using Google Apps for documentation assessment, I'm always pulled back to my magnetic north, which is the why. Why do all this work? Well, for me, if I say that responsive practice is the goal that will lead us to deep learning, then I need to do something to make that reflective in the classroom. And with so many educators working and learning throughout the students' flow of the day, collaboration using these Google tools is key. So as the communication of learning and reporting approaches, we wondered, okay, how do we take all this data in the student doc and begin the process of evaluation to share with families? That's when the light bulb went on and this final form was created. Basically, this form allows us to think about all the evidence of learning we've gathered and evaluate whether the evidence is a key learning, a growth in learning, or a next step. So if you're a full day kindergarten teacher and you've written the first round of reports using the new FDK report card, you will know that we have 4 boxes to report on. We need to report on each of the 4 frames. And within those 4 frames, we need to report on evidence of a key learning of the student, a growth in learning that's been observed over time, and next steps. So this form allows us to think through that entire I don't want to call it mess of learning, but all of these disparate pieces and put it into more of a package. It's sorted by name again. The name is this drop down, and it is doc appended to the student's doc. This time, the overall expectations, still organized by frame, are grouped by key learning, growth and learning, etc. So we can go into this form, choose a key learning using the overall expectations for the frame. For example, if we're talking about, we're going to talk about the frame belonging and contributing, then we will identify a key learning, a growth in learning, and a next step in learning. And we repeat this for each of the 4 frames. So basically, for 12 overall expectations we've identified. Then this is sent to the student's doc using DocAppender. But the real beauty for us is that this data is also displayed in a Google Sheet. So remember, I said earlier that forms automatically generate data in a sheet or an Excel spreadsheet if you talk Microsoft Word language. So now in this Google Sheet, you can see the overall expectations that we have the evidence for, which we are identifying as a key learning for, say, student X. This data can be sorted any way we need it to be sorted. This one you're seeing on your screen is sorted by the frame. A key learning for demonstrating literacy and math behaviors, the growth and learning for demonstrating literacy and math behaviors, and the next step. Then it goes into key learning. But if you wanted to sort it by the 4 key learnings or the 4 growth and learnings, or you could sort it by the data in the boxes. Which students have you noticed that are demonstrating learning in overall expectation 20, as you'll see in the second line? Amazingly, when you choose to analyze this data, it also became very clear what we are noticing, what we possibly are valuing. And that was a really big reflective step for us teachers, because we notice what we value. How could this work for you? So we get to the communication of learning. And the last step I want to share with you is how the voice typing tool in Google Docs has made the reporting process a real joy for me. Yes, you heard it. Sunday morning at 11:29, I just used reporting and joy in the same sentence. When reporting time rolls around, I can open the individual student's doc. I can scroll through the pictures and the anecdotal comments. I have the spreadsheet there to see the evidence of curriculum connections for the students' key learnings, growth of learnings, and next steps. And I can tie it all together in a comment that I choose to speak into the Google Doc. I find this easier and faster than typing. And the comment can be edited, it can be cut and pasted and put right into the report card box. The joy part? Oh, by accident, I discovered this other bonus to doing this. First, all the educators who have access to this doc can read the communication of learning I've written without having to go to the office in the school and into the OSR files, because it's right there in the student's doc. And as well, when next term's reporting comes around, I've got the comment from the previous term right there to reflect with. This is really helpful, especially as this is a program that continues over 2 years. So wherever you are in your current documentation and assessment process, rest assured that you've both overcome challenges to get there and have some more learning ahead. Learning alongside your colleagues and the students and even their families is a great gift to be treasured. Cognitive science research tells us not only is it okay, but necessary to get that yucky feeling we get in the pit of our stomach when we're challenged by new learning. It's all part of the process. So with that, I'll let the words of Maya Angelou lead us forward. Do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better. So that's our story so far, and it is being written and rewritten every day. Thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. I hope something that you saw or heard might spark your next learning. And even better, share your thinking with us so we can keep growing together. If you click on Go with the FDK Flow on this slide, you'll get the link to the resources page. Thanks times infinity and beyond to the Wire DSB Digital Learning Resource Team, who have put in countless days to make this EdTech Camp happen. Their technical and moral support has been simply outstanding, above and beyond. So don't forget to connect on Twitter, share your stories as well. I'm going now. hope you enjoyed the broadcast, and keep tuning in for the rest of the day as there are some amazing presenters who have presented before and after. Have a great one.